Everyone is Addicted is a judgment-free space for real conversations about addiction. It's a show about breaking the stigma and building empathy. Everyone is Addicted, Mondays at 11 p.m.
What's going on, everybody? This is the host of Recover Out Loud podcast, Sean Young. Before we dive in, I want to be clear. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not here to diagnose or treat. I'm simply a catalyst, someone who's walked through the fire and now speaks from experience, reflection, and a deep desire to help others find their way forward. This podcast may include honest conversations about addiction, mental health challenges, and suicidal thoughts or ideations. These are real parts of the human experience, and we won't shy away from them. If you're listening, please do so with self-care and self-awareness. And if you're struggling, please reach out. There's help out there. And most importantly, there's hope. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let's get it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode 120. Man, we got 120 episodes under our belt. We're going to keep rolling with this thing. It's not going to stop until the wheels fall off this bitch. But today, we got a really awesome guest. We got Jayme Ethridge. How you doing, Jayme?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Man, today was a good day. And that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How was your day?
It was a good day. It was cold here. I'm in Alabama, and we've had like 110-degree weather for the past couple weeks, and then it dropped and got really cold. So I've been a wussy the past all day and wearing a flannel, and I've got my moccasins out, and I'm pretending like it's fall.
Yeah, I saw the flannel. I was like, God damn, where's she at? Alaska and shit? Like, it's cold.
No, I'm in Alabama, and it was 70 degrees today, and I was freezing.
Yeah, I can imagine. The weather here in Maryland has been pretty wicked. Like last week it was 90s, it almost hit 100. And then this week, the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, it just cooled off a little bit. And today I was like, man, dude, I'm not even sweating going outside for a walk. That's good. It's really good.
Yes, it was nice, and I had a job interview or jobs orientation today. So new chapter, new starting. So it was a good day, all in all.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So before we get started, would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
it was cutting out. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. Technology, it's a crazy thing. So would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah, of course. Name's Jane. I actually just hit 5 years clean in May 26th. I was a IV meth addict for about 6 years. Kind of started my addiction in life. But I, found recovery, found a new life, and down here in Alabama. I'm originally from Indiana, and got 3 kids, and I work 2 jobs, and I have, all the things with mom life, sports, kids, back to school right now, and I'm kind of a jack of all trades. And then obviously I do a lot of online recovery stuff with my group that I have online, and a group that I'm a part of and stuff like that. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. That's my life.
Yeah, so I have seen you like virtually all over the place, and I didn't come out and say, hey, look, I want you to be a guest until I got to that point where I was like, fuck, I need more people. And I always see your face around, and I'm like, fuck, okay, let's get her on. Let's hear her story. Yeah, but you do a lot of work in the recovery community, and that's amazing. We need more people like you out there doing shit.
Thank you. Yeah, it keeps me humble and it keeps me growing and learning because like I don't have all the answers in life by any means, but I'm very open to listening, and that's how I think our stories are very important. I think our testimonies are a huge tool for people for so many reasons. One being the fact of one, you can relate to somebody and not feel alone in the world, and two, like I can learn something if I'm going through something and I don't know how to navigate it. I can be like, oh well, hey, I remember when they talked about this, and let me see how they navigate it. And I think it's so important to share.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I get something every single time that I record with somebody, whether it's a small tidbit or like a massive revelation in my life. I get something from people, and that keeps me coming back, right? And that keeps this going, right? And
Absolutely.
I don't use this as my therapy. I got a therapist for that shit. But this is part of my recovery, right? And a part of my journey. And I'm so blessed to meet people like you and people like our good friend Jared, that that have so much knowledge about the world and about addiction. And like you said, we don't have all the answers, but there's somebody else that does have an answer to a question that we have. And so I find it very important to keep these conversations going. And right off the bat, before we get started, like I just want to say thank you, for
Absolutely.
sharing your experience.
It's my absolute honor. It's super cool because of the name of your podcast here, Recover Out Loud. That's the name of my group.
Yeah,
So it's like it was kind of I'm big on the universe and signs, and I'm like, yeah, I got to do this. Like,
yeah. It the show's gone through a bunch of transformations. It started as sitting with Sean, and then I was like, well, that's kind of played out. Like I got to reinvent, and so I came up with Recover Out Loud, just simply for the fact that like when we're in recovery and we start actually like getting into like our actual recovery, like discovering who we are, getting sober, getting clean, all that shit, and like figuring out where we went wrong, and then the coping mechanisms that weren't so healthy, right? We start sharing those and talking about those, and if we live in silence as a hermit, we're bound to relapse, right? Like it's a fact. But if we start
absolutely.
yeah, if we start sharing this shit, and you know it's the recover out loud, it's the living out loud, right? Like you hold functions, you do shit out in your community, and that's out loud. You're putting yourself out there. So I think that it's so important to live out loud and live up front and live who we are, and just be proud of who we are and not shy away from the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you said you had orientation. What's the new job?
Well, I have been a CNA for the past 7 years, and now I'm still staying in the medical health field. So I'm still a CNA. It's just at a place a lot closer. I've been driving about an hour to work one way for the past 3 years, and found got a place closer. You know, us felons, we have a hard time finding a job and that pesky background check. And but this is good to be. It's good. I can work whatever hours I want. They're gonna work around whatever schedule I want to do, and how with my kids. And then I actually have some. I'm kind of moving forward and speaking at a few recovery events this year. It's kind of something new that I'm dipping my toes in and seeing how I do. I can talk really well on these, but I haven't really done too much in person yet, so I don't know if I'm a big scaredy cat yet or not. But we'll find out, I guess, in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah,
But they'll work with that.
I mean, there's a huge difference between talking to one person and then standing in front of a group of people that are just every eye is on you. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I've definitely been there before, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. But I mean, if it touches one person's life and it changes one person's life, then that it's worth all the nerves.
That's what I tell everybody. That's if we all remember coming into recovery here, like I know with the hundreds of people that I've talked to and heard their testimonies, like everybody's always said that one thing of I just want to help that one person. And I mean, those were the words out of my mouth when I came into recovery. I don't care. I just want to help one person. And um, can you imagine all of us helping that one person and then the next person, and then it's just like the domino effect, and eventually catching on like wildfire.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have a mentor in Alaska. That's where I started my recovery, and he's a director of peer support now, which is absolutely massive. And so, like, they were talking about the ripple effect that you toss a stone and it just ripples out, ripples out. Well, this man has inadvertently helped like over 10,000 people just in the span of his recovery, and it blows my mind like how much we affect other people, and then how those people affect other people, and it's just amazing. It's a great testament to like recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead, let's dive into your story. Let's hear about that. When was the first time that you remember doing using a drink or a drug?
First time was back when I was in school, like I was probably eighth grade, somewhere in there. And my addiction, my stronger, I guess, addiction started later in life, like in high school, whatever. I partied probably like any other kid. You know what I mean? Like I feel like all kids, we had that phase in high school where we would, most of us go out on the weekend and have a few drinks or whatever. But I was always a really good kid in school. Like I graduated with honors. I went off to college, and I dabbled a little bit in high school. I smoked weed in high school. I drank. Drinking was probably more up my alley in high school. And then, um, but that's when I met my ex-husband, and um, was in high school, and he was always the one that drank quite a bit. So, like my intake of any kind of drugs or alcohol, kind of, I just kept myself limited because I had to be mindful and babysit for a lot of it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I hear a lot of people that say they started drinking and smoking and weed in high school and stuff like that, and some even younger than that. And like I had a drink, when I was four, but like I was four, right? Like can't really, not, it's, you know, but then mine didn't start until I was away from home, right? And like and in the army.
Yeah,
It's really cool to see, like, and I mean that's shitty to say, it's really cool, but it's 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 crazy to see like where everybody started from, and then like being able to see, right, like you realize that like drinking wasn't your vice or wasn't the actual drug, but it came much later on, whereas your ex-husband, it may have been his, he may have been a full-blown alcoholic.
it was. And because I come from an alcoholic family, like my dad, my stepmom, my mom, my dad, my stepdad, everybody. I mean, my brothers, everybody drinks, and I'm from small town Indiana, where we have like a bar on about every corner, like two. I think there's three bars in my hometown, and two grocery stores, two pizza places, and the school, and everybody goes to the ball games on Friday nights. Like that's where I'm, a flashing a light, and that's it. So there was really nothing to do other than drinking and going to the bar. I was a bartender for probably, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years. I bartended before my addiction really hit. But I being in school, I got good grades. Like I said, I graduated with honors. I went off to college for photography. That was the first time I went to college for my associates in photography. And that's when I got pregnant with my oldest son. And I graduated in '05. So he was born in '07. And I actually went off to school in Ohio. And then when I got pregnant with him, I moved back to Indiana, to my hometown. Um, and his dad started working on the road and things like that. So I wanted to be around my family, first kid and all that. But the whole duration of that relationship that I was with him in, I mean, it was I was already like a broken kid in school. Like I was not that popular kid. I was not the, I was not in any clique, but I was friends with about everybody. I was a band geek. I played the clarinet and I was in choir. And I was an art major because of photography and stuff like that. I did a lot of 3D art and stuff. So like that was me. I was that quiet, reformed kid in school and carried that on to the start of going to college and you know but that I realized over the years a lot of my problems stemmed from that. I don't blame him per se, but it was a lot of my issues because that was a very, very abusive relationship. The first one of the first times I remember him hitting me, um, we were in high school. I think I was a junior. I was a junior, maybe going into my senior year. My head got smashed into a locker. And I remember um I don't even remember what it was for. I think he wanted to leave school, and I'm like, I was trying to get him to stay at school or something that day, and he was trying to skip or something. I don't remember. Um, and we started fighting. And anyway, I remember a teacher must have seen it or seen the aftermath of it and didn't actually see it because I think if he would have seen it, there probably would have been some other repercussions for the action. But I remember this teacher pulling me aside and talking to me and pretty much kind of knew that I was in that kind of a relationship early on, and I was only 17. Um, but that was like the first, like I said, I was a geeky kid. Like I was a nerd. No boys liked me. So this was the first boy that ever gave me the time of day. So, and then upon seeing like my family and their drinking, and my dad was never an abusive person, not to me, not to my nobody like that, but when him and my stepmom would drink, like, man, it would get rough. So that was always like a normal, I guess. Like I'm like, I thought, oh, that's how life's supposed to be. We're supposed to get mad at each other and fucking throw your head into a wall, like that's normal. Like um so that was like the behavior I accepted for myself. And I moved off to college, got pregnant with Ryan, moved back. And like I said, he was the one, he would go to the bars and drink and get home to where it was blackout drunk. And it was like I had to, I had to hide car keys and money and then my life was that I was spending my last bit of money or our last bit of money on whatever to keep him happy. Like I was such a quiet, reformed person. I was that girl that bowed her head down because I didn't want to get smacked around. And like I said, I just thought that's how things were supposed to be. And I was with him for about 13 years. And then, going through the years, we ended up, I mean, I was cheated on and left, and we got back together and things like that throughout the years. And then probably, well, it was in 2012 my daughter was born. um and we ended up right after she was born in that September. And right after she was born, and during that pregnancy, like the abuse still continued. Like I was thrown out of a car, and um I was really sick. The stress was making me extremely sick and nauseous, and constantly I had to get IV fluids all the time. But the fighting it just never stopped. Like I always made him mad. Like I was like I breathed wrong, and he was fucking pissed at me. I was that girl in the car. Like he would have to ask me something or say something, and I was always flinching. Like I remember that. And I just I conformed myself for like 13 years to do whatever he said, no matter what the cost. And over those years, it cost, we were bouncing from place to place, eviction after eviction, because I would take every last bit of our money because I knew for him, when he wasn't drinking, the only thing that would keep him calm is if he smoked weed. So I'm like, all right, here's our last, $20, get you some weed, get high so you can just be chill. and which ended up obviously doing a lot more damage there. But my daughter, when she was born, I ended up leaving him and for another short period of time. And I ended up moving out to Phoenix, Arizona. This is I was living in Indiana. We moved out to Arizona, and where I was going to take my kids. And at this time, I was a store manager. I was running a Claire's store. I had been a store manager. I had already graduated with my business degree. So I went to school for photography and then moved on for my associates in business management, and then was running my own businesses. So like this was all before addiction. So like this is kind of a nutshell, me in a nutshell. And anyway, I went to move out there, and he's like, "Well, you're not gonna go you're not going with my kids, and I'm not going." So we ended up going together, moving out there, and I remember us telling each other like, "Okay, this is like a fresh start, right? We're a fresh start kind of thing." And got out there, and it wasn't even 2 weeks that we got out there that I found out that he had another female pregnant with twins back in Indiana. And I fucking lost it. Like I was not okay. That was my one and only time that I truly remember going to drink and drinking like entirely for the wrong reasons that night. And I went to the liquor store that night, and I bought probably I brought like 4 different bottles of, Jim Beam. I bought a bottle of tequila, Mad Dog 2020 even, and I literally drank and drove around Phoenix, Arizona that night to where I couldn't even drive anymore. And then I tried to, I came to my senses the next day and tried to get all the anger away. And I was just like, how are we going to handle this? How am I going to deal with this? And I was trying so hard to make him happy and make it work that I even opted to take his kids from her because she was going to give them up for adoption. I'm like, all right, well, you're the dad. Let's take those kids. Let's
Yep.
raise them. That's how much that I was willing to sacrifice my every well-being for kids that weren't even mine, and kids that I had after I was cheated on, Um, So it wasn't, we were there for a couple years. He ended up, nothing with his kids. They ended up giving them for adoption or whatnot. And it was in 2012, 13, 14-ish, roughly. Um, Found out he had another girlfriend while we were there, and I finally just had enough. And me and my kids, I called my mom, and I'm like, I want to come home. So she got me and my kids plane tickets, and we flew back to Indiana, and was there for about a month. And then he decided he wanted to come back to Indiana.
Mm.
And when he got there, that first night he got there, we were talking, and during that time, like I said, I knew we had gotten married. Back up, we got married like that year, so it was after we were married. He had a girlfriend, and then after the fact, I get to Indiana, and I'm there for a little while. I kind of, I hooked up with somebody, and was hanging out with somebody, and then he was moving back. So we had this conversation when he came back, the very first night he came back, and we had that conversation over a bottle of Jim Beam, to which it didn't really go well in my favor that night. And despite all of the things that he did, I was the one that was wrong. How dare you? And that night, I ended up getting dragged through a field by my hair, and my head slammed up against a cinder block, to the point where I was coming in and out, and I remember looking up at the stars. I remember we were staying at my dad's then, and like in my it's just country around, so like I was taken out to where nobody could hear anything, right? And I just remember looking at the stars, and I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna happen to my kids? Like this is it, because this is what I've dealt with, nights like that for the past 13 years. And it's after that happened, like after I'm looking, and it was just maybe it felt like forever, but like probably just maybe a couple minutes later, my dad finally woke up and heard and came out, and I that was my out, and I hauled ass to the house, and I went inside, and I'm just crying. I'm covered in blood, and I couldn't even see my face in the mirror. And my cousin was there, and I just remember looking at him and my cousin, and I'm like, "How bad is my face? Like, how bad is it?" And he's like, "Where's he at?" And I'm like, "Leave it alone." I said, "He didn't mean to. He didn't, and here's all the excuses. He drank too much. He didn't mean to. He didn't know what he was doing." Um, and they ended up having to take me to the hospital, but I made them take me to a hospital 2 counties away because I didn't wanna tell them what happened, right? So I went into that hospital, and they asked me what happened, and I told them that I got mugged coming out of a bar in a big city, didn't know who it was, and that was the lie that I said, and I still begged him to stay. I was that girl that begged him to stay despite all the abuse, despite all that, I still said, "Don't go," you know? Um, and I remember that's about the time I after that, that's about the time I started bartending, and I remember for a good 2 months, this is fucked up. He even and my dad, everybody was there, they knew what happened, right? Um, but he would help me cover my face with makeup every morning. And now that I just said that out loud, like, that's pretty fucked up. Like, that's crazy that I thought that that was okay. But, so anyway, fast forward, I'm still working on it because I think I can change him, right? Like, that's what us women think that we can do. We think that we can change these men. We think that if we love them hard enough, that for some reason they're gonna love us back the way that we want to be loved.
Yeah.
And boy, that can tear you apart in so many ways trying to figure it out, right? And it did me. Um, the last time it was about a couple months later after that, it was in February. I was bartending, and he always put me in a position to where he knew I was the bartender. So, like, how do you cut off your old man from drinking, right? Because if I cut him off, then he's going to and cause problems with my money at work. And, it was, so I overserved him. And he ended up taking the car, leaving me that night, and wrecked my car, wouldn't come back and get me. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let him go home and sleep it off, right? I'm gonna go with some friends after work. Went with a group of them till about 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, he should be passed out. I'll go home. He should be passed out. I'll be fine. He'll wake up. It'll be okay. I thought I was ahead of it that time. Like, I'm like, okay, I've done this so many times. I thought I was ahead of it. The next morning, he woke up, and I had slept on the couch, and just like I think all of us humans today, when first thing we do when we wake up is pick up our phones, right? Oh, I think we all do that. And that's what I did. And I was laying on the couch, and all of a sudden, from behind, I get busted in the back of the head, and I just called all these names and all these things going on, and to where I got put on the ground, and then my kneecap got kicked out, and then he tried to take my daughter, and leave, and I wasn't gonna let him. And again, I'm still not the one to call the cops. I won't ain't gonna call the cops on you because I already know what's gonna happen then. Like, but my stepmom did, and he went to jail. And this was in around 2015-ish, early 2015. I think it was like February-ish, somewhere in there. Um, and he went to jail. And it's tax time, so I had money, and he knew I had money, and kept calling for me to bail him out. And I was driving to work one day, and I didn't answer his call from jail, and I called my dad, and I started crying, and I'm like, I said, "Dad, I think I'm done." I said, "I don't think I want to be somebody's punching bag anymore." I said, "When's he gonna learn?" And he's like, "You're right." And I said, but what do I do, Dad? Like, what do I do? He knows I have the money. If he gets out, he's gonna be mad. He's like, Dad, just like, just let me handle it, Just don't answer the phone. He'll call me eventually. And it was about a month later, I filed for divorce while I was in jail. And then that's when I felt like I had this freedom, right? Like I felt for the first time I could do what I want, when I want, how I want. I don't have to worry about looking over my shoulder. I don't have to worry about getting smacked because I said something wrong. Like I didn't have to worry about like anything. Like I could be me. But the problem was I didn't really know who I was. Right? I thought I did. Um, and I was continuing bartending and um fast forward a little while, my divorce gets finalized later that year, and I'm working, and somebody from I went to school with come into my bar, and somebody I always had a crush on in school. It was actually my very first crush I ever had, right? Um, Back from like fifth grade. And he come into the bar that night, and we just kind of reconnected and started talking, and then we just started hanging out after that, um and it wasn't until it's about 2015. It was at December, November somewhere. Um, him and his brother, they're really, really good musicians. They've been around that lifestyle their whole life. So one night we're hanging out or whatever, and he talks about um doing Adderall. I'm like, well, what the fuck's that? Like, cause I never really did any of those kind of drugs. And I tried it, snorted it for the first time, and that's what we did for a couple weekends in a row, just snorted Adderall. And then after that, it was like 2 weekends of that, and then it's like, "Hey, let's try some meth." And then I had never done it before. I was that bitch that said, You will never catch me doing that. How dare those people? They look horrible. You'll never see me losing my life like that." I said that. That was me. I was that girl. And then I got high with meth for the first time I snorted a line, and I couldn't put it down afterwards. Um, Started, I thought in the very beginning that I made all these rules for myself, right? Like I'm like, oh, okay, well, I seen how all these other people did it the wrong way. So I'm smarter than I'll do it the right way, right? There's a right way to do drugs. And so it was at first it was like every weekend I'd get high, and then I'd realize come Sunday when I wasn't going to get high, I was sick as fuck. And then I was tired of being sick every Sunday and Monday trying to go to work. So then I realized if I did a little bit of line, that sick feeling would kind of go away, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I just do a little bit every day. It kind of just went from that, like a little bit. And I was only, snorting lines. That's the only way I was doing it in the very beginning, because I was always said that if you smoke it, then you're just a dirty drug addict. That was I'm doing it a little bit classier. That's the lies I told myself, right? And then I realized shortly after it that I could make money. What? I can get high, I can make money and pretty much get high for free? Well, fuck yeah, sign me up, right? So that's what I started doing. I started doing the math, because I'm one of those people that, like, if I can find a cheaper way to do something and it's more efficient, like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm a businesswoman. I went to school for business management. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna make a business out of it. So, that's what I did, and I started, I would buy a bottle or 2 at a time off just getting started, and then just kinda went from there. So during that time, I was with that guy for about 2 years, and, the drugs made us toxic. Surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah.
Um, and finally that relationship ended, and, I wasn't ready to quit. I started another job bartending somewhere else, and then it was that summer of 2017 when I met my youngest son's dad. again, I'm from a small town, so um I knew him, went to school with him and stuff, and I met him and that met up with him in that summer. I was on the back of a Harley all summer selling drugs all over the state of Indiana, back and forth. And I ended up getting pregnant with my youngest son. That was, and I I didn't know how to quit. I couldn't quit at that time. Um, but I was very honest with my doctor. I went to the doctor and to, do all the tests that us women do for pregnancies and shit. And I did tell my doctor, like, look, I'm a meth addict. Like, I'm getting high. And I said, I don't know how to stop because I tried to quit cold turkey. And I was just with being pregnant and morning sickness and on top of dope sick, like I couldn't do it. So, I was very honest and we talked about it. And then my doctor was just like, okay, this is how you need to do it. And that's what I did. So by December of that year, or December, so 2 months later, um, I had stopped and I weaned myself down. Not that that's how I did it, right? And I'm not recommending that for anybody in any way, shape, or form, but that is what I did. And that's how I did it. I would tell myself, and this is while I was pregnant, I would tell myself, okay, I'll get high on Monday, but I'm going to push myself till Wednesday and not get high till then. And that's the only way I could do it while I was pregnant until I got to the point where I was at 2 weeks of not getting high straight. And that's what I did. But during that time of getting pregnant and stuff, um, I was working, like I said, I was working in a bar, and one night a sheriff comes in, and he asked me by my name, and I said yeah, and he served me custody papers of my kids, my oldest two kids, and prior to that, I had asked my dad for help because I had lost a job. We start to lose shit, right? I lost my house, I started losing my job, and all these things started happening. But it wasn't the drugs' fault; it was everybody else's fault. Like that's how what I that's what I said, right? It wasn't the drugs doing it; it was me, or whatever. And so I got served those papers that night, and I was angry. I was so angry. I had thought this whole time I was telling myself that I was trying to get clean, and I mean, I wasn't trying hard enough. I was trying to find ways to be a functioning addict is what I was really trying to do, and trying to lie to everybody still and still have my dope when I wanted it. Um, so I ended up my losing custody of my kids, my dad, and got pregnant with my youngest, went through all that. And after and during this time, like I've been bouncing from place to place to live. Me and his dad, we had an apartment for a minute, but I lost it. I spent money and that I shouldn't have spent on certain things, and lost it. And then we ended up moving in with his family, but during for the duration of my pregnancy. But they told us when we had the baby, we had to be out. And, during that time after I got clean for the last part of my pregnancy, like nobody wants to rent to somebody that has eviction after eviction, and nobody wants to rent and he was a felon. I had no felonies yet. So like there was nowhere. I had my youngest in the hospital 4th of July that year, July 4th, 2018. And we went to go. I got released out of the hospital. I was in there for about a week, so it was a pretty complicated pregnancy or delivery. And my parents, mind you, I haven't talked to really my family. I'm in and out of the picture. Like I'm that addict that I didn't go around my family. My attitude was better out of sight, out of mind. So if they don't have to see me, then I'm not hurting them. That's what I told myself. Um, and So we got out of the hospital. I ended up going to stay with my mom we didn't make it there probably 3 days. because me and my mom don't get along very well. And we ended up living in a tent. So we took a newborn baby and we lived in a tent in that Indiana heat in the middle of July going into August. And I still wasn't using yet. I was still clean after I had him. It wasn't until September that year, September of a couple months after he was born, and I started getting high again. And at this point, we were kind of bouncing around with a newborn baby. And to where we were living out of hotels, we were living from couches. I was selling drugs out of with my kid in the car, taking him to places I had no business taking him to. I was that one. I even hid my fucking dope in his formula, like the jars of formula with the powder and shit. In case I got pulled over, who would have thought that they would look in there, right? That was my attitude. But how stupid. What if something would have happened and it broke out in there? I didn't really think of that until after the fact. Fortunately, nothing bad ever happened. I was very, very fortunate. To the point we were driving, I was from Indiana to Ohio back and forth and all these things, to the point where I finally just pretty much left my kid with his grandparents, or with Dex's grandparents, my youngest son's his grandparents, his mom, and kind of just left and then let the drugs take over. And I was still selling drugs, I was still hustling around, and it was 2018. It was about 2018, 19. It was probably 2019. Was that fall? Roughly, anyway, somewhere roughly in there. That's when I stuck a needle in my arm for the first time. Living in a hotel. And his dad always was, that's how he would do it. And see, here's the thing. I was always that person too. Like I said in the beginning, I was that girl that said I would never fucking touch meth. How dirty is that? I was also that bitch that said I'd never stick a needle in my arm until I did. And I did it out of spite. I didn't do it for any other reason other than to make him mad, because he told me no. And I'm like, well, fuck you. You're doing it. Now I'm ready to do it. And I did it for the first time. And I was pretty much gone after that. I was to the point where I was doing half-gram shots 5 times a day, you know. Um, easy, easy. I did almost a half-gram shot the first time I got high, first time I stuck that needle in my arm off the rip. Like, um, I was to the point where I was all or nothing. I was very, very, I was already a very depressed, sad person going into obviously addiction. And anybody that knows anything about, I guess, any drug, but I always want to say meth is that drug that takes you to that deep, dark place in your mind. Um, you know, and that obviously, again, that relationship was toxic. I grew to the point where I was fucking losing my mind. And there was one day that I was already in the mindset of not wanting to be here. Suicide was like huge. I was ready to go many, many times. I took one instance. I took the knife off of my youngest son's dad's belt loop. We were arguing, and I had enough of the lying and the girls and all the shit. And I grabbed his knife and I slit my own throat. And I have a scar it's there still. And it wasn't long after that when I didn't cut it deep enough. I went and jumped off a bridge. It was about 50 foot in the air. Jumped off a bridge. Jumped out of the car. Jumped off the bridge, down to some train tracks. Um, I was just miserable. And see, here's the thing: is like I was to that point where I finally realized that, like, I thought I felt miserable when I was coming down, right? So if I just take another shot, like, I'll be okay. I'll stop crying. And that's what I started doing. And I didn't realize how much worse it was making it, to where it was pretty much unfunctionable. Um, in 2019, I started getting arrested, little drug charges here and there, and theft. I got arrested in November of 2019, December 2019, then again in January, where I sat the fuck down for a little while because I got arrested in Ohio. I was homeless. I was considered a flight risk. So I had no bond because I had nowhere to go and I was out of state. So that's the longest I had ever sat in jail. I was there for about 3.5 months. Um during that time, that was in 2020. And during that time in jail, um, I just everything kept just getting fucking prolonged and they just kept keeping me, my dates kept getting longer and longer. And I finally had it worked out that I was supposed to go to a rehab facility in Cleveland. I think it was in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I got released. I ended up having a warrant because I'd been in court, been there so long. So when they released me, they ended up having to take me and extradite me to Indiana for another case. I got released that day, and I started walking, and I ended up calling my dad and said, "Hey, I'm where you at?" And he's like, "I'm driving to town," and I'm like, "Okay, well, can you swing by the jail and pick me up? Like, I'm free. Like, come get me." Um, and he ended up picking me up, and I was supposed to go to this facility. And mind you, this is when COVID started, right? 2020. And this is when it was getting bad. So then they wouldn't let me come in. They held a bed for me, but because of COVID, I couldn't get in there.
Yeah.
And now I'm staying with my dad and my stepmom, to which I don't get along with my stepmom at any means at all. And never have. And me and them were talking one night, and I was trying to explain to them like because they drank, and I was trying to compare my meth using to their alcohol, right?
Yeah.
But they're the ones that don't want to hear it because meth is a drug, alcohol is alcohol. And it pissed me off, and out of spite I fucking left. I left my kids. My kids were living there with them. That's my dad. He had custody of my kids. Um and I left. I'm like, well, fuck this. And then I left and got high. I threw away the 3.5 months that I had, the go into rehab, and off the rip, I stuck that needle back in my arm. Um, and it's so crazy. I have pictures from the day I got out of jail, and then like not even 3 weeks later, and how much damage I did to myself in 3 weeks is fucking insane. Um, I ended up taking off. I got arrested again. Um, by this time, I had it in my head that I was going to prison. And I'm like, I don't do well in county jail. Fuck this. I ain't going to prison. So I took off. I ended up going with some friends, went to Marietta, Georgia. And I ended up getting left there. And I was living in the streets. I was literally living in the woods. That's where I did. I lived in the woods. I was the girl that stood on the street corners holding the signs, begging for change outside the Circle K and all that. Yeah, that was me. I was the girl that I would walk about like 2 blocks to this church at night, and there was a spigot back there that I could shower out of,
Yeah.
so I could at least have clean, semi-clean face. Um, I slept on a couch that was literally next to a dumpster. That's where I would sleep if I was sleeping. I was that girl. I even to the point where I started getting I started doing dumb shit. See, I got down there and I just had it in my head that I'm like, fuck this. Like, my family's better off without me. And I had no intentions on ever seeing any of my family again. Um, I was actually gonna drift around. Like, I was actually in the process of going to um Las Vegas. We were gonna hitchhike there. And but one day I was sitting in the middle of the woods, and I was just, how like when you're coming down and you get to that point on that come down where it's like, I'm over this, I don't want to live like this anymore, but if you don't do something about it right then and there, like, you're gonna get high and forget that moment.
Yep.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's where I was. And I was literally laying and sitting in the middle of the woods, and I was crying. And I finally dawned on me that I was in Georgia. And I'm like, And I was trying to get back to Indiana, but I couldn't find a way back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm right by Alabama. Like, oh, here's a map. Let me figure it out. And I have a cousin here in Alabama. And I ended up getting her number, and I messaged her, and I said, is this Kelly Joe? And she said, there's only two people that called me that, and this isn't my Uncle Tom, which is my dad. She said, Jayme, she said, how are you? And I literally just let everything spill out. I actually still have those messages. I saved them 5 years later. But I told her that I was in Georgia, that I was in the streets, and I didn't want to live like this anymore, but I didn't want to be in this world anymore. Like I told her I wanted to die. I did all these things. But I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to feel happy. And I just wanted it to go away. And she said, I talked to her. I avoided her actually after that because I'm like too much information to process. But she's like, I'll come get you. And I'm sitting here like, that's too much all at once. Like, I can't, I don't want to let somebody else down. I let so many people down in my life, including my kids, that I don't want to let somebody else down again. But the thing about my cousin is she don't fucking take no for an answer. And she was coming regardless I wanted her to or not. And she told me she was going to give me 3 days to decide. And I ended up messaging her on that third day, and I said, yeah, I'm ready. Come get me. And she came. She having cancer, having congestive heart failure. She's had 13 heart attacks. She was on chemo, and she came and got me. She's a diabetic. Like, her health sucks. But this woman dropped everything and brought her daughter, my little cousin. She was 16 at the time, I think. And they drove 4 hours to Marietta, Georgia to pick up their little cousin that they ain't seen in years. Not knowing what kind of person I was, not knowing if I was gonna steal from them, not knowing nothing, right? Just knew that I was family, and that she said that she told me, she said, I have family, and family, she always says family first. That's her philosophy, and that's one of my philosophies that I brought into recovery. But she said, I can't believe I had family looking like you did, and I wasn't going to stand for it. So she came and got me, brought me back to her house. She made me call my parents and tell them I was okay, which I didn't fucking want to do, but I did anyway because it was the right thing to do. Because you learn later that I caused them a lot of shit, even though I thought that everything was their fault. It really equal parts. And the first couple weeks I was there, I just slept and ate and slept and ate. Um, and while I was sleeping and eating, she was she doesn't come from addiction background. Like, she doesn't know nothing about meth. She had no idea what to expect with me. And she researched everything she could find out with how I was going to feel. What were my mood swings going to be like? Am I going to be sick? Am I going to have withdrawals? Like, she wanted to prepare herself, one, to help me, but two, to know what she was going to get into, because she did have a teenage kid there that she needed to protect and stuff too, right? And found me a outpatient program that I did out of Huntsville, Alabama. But so I'm not big. I believe in God, but I'm that person that I didn't want you to fucking tell me about God in the very beginning. Like, don't you dare tell me to pray about it, because I don't know what that means. And that was something that I'm still learning today, 5 years later. But I'm a big person of the universe, right? And this is why people say that these are like the spiritual awakenings or acts from God or whatever the case may be. That first week that I was there, I was having them fucking that irritation of anger of, I want to get high. Like, fuck this. I don't want to do it no more. I want to go get high. So I was trying to find somebody yet again. I was actually talking to my youngest son's dad. I'm like, fucking come get me. I want to get out of here. I need to get high. Send me money. I need to get high. And he was telling me no. And I pretty much I was yelling at him. So, but my cousin had this Native American Indian man. He came to the house. He was building a deck, and she was out there talking to him about it, right out front, outside. I was inside on this phone. Nobody could hear this conversation that was going on. I ended up hanging up, and in my head, again, in my head, I didn't say any of these things out loud. I'm sitting here, I'm like, you know what, fuck this. Tonight when she goes to bed, I'm gonna go out this door. I'm gonna hitchhike. I'm gonna go down to that Dollar General. I've already seen my way around here. The highway's right there. I'm gonna go hitchhike and I'm gonna make my way back to Georgia, right? This was all the thoughts in my head. So I kind of find my calm down for a minute. And I'm like, I need to go check on her. Cause again, cousin's health. I was worried, just wanted to make sure she was okay with the guy anyway. I go out there and he stops mid sentence and he looks at me and he is like, "You don't go anywhere after dark." And I'm like, looking at him. And then my cousin's looking at me. She's like, "How the fuck do you know who this is?" Kind of look like. I'm like, he's like, "Nothing good is after dark." He's like, "And there's nothing good in that direction." And he pointed to where I'd have to go back to Georgia. Like that's the direction he was pointing. So he's like, "So stay here. Don't go anywhere," right? And I'm sitting here. And so I never told, it took me over a year to tell my cousin that what I was going to do. Cause I wasn't gonna tell her then and there, but I told her when I got clean after about a year that I was planning on running away that night. But he said that. So I held on to that. And then about a week later after that, she was taking me to my IOP program to get my paperwork and everything signed up in Huntsville. And we're driving and she's giving me one of her Kelly 101 lectures. And she said, and during life, whenever you're questioning anything in life, whether you're stuck on a decision you want to make, or if you're going in the right direction or whatever the case may be, she said, if you're open enough and you open your eyes, there's always going to be a sign there that tells you that you're on the right path, right? And I'm just listening to her talk and I was taking it all in, obviously. And we pull over to this gas station. We had ended the conversation, right? Going in to get some pop and we're up at the checkout and the clerk stops and looks at me and he's like, "I don't know why I need to tell you this right now, but I need to let you know that you're in the right place, that you're right where you need to be today. You're in the right direction." He's like, "Just keep pushing, just keep going." And I look at her and she's got this big shit-eating grin on her face because she just like, we just had this conversation. And I look at her and she's like, "Now do you believe me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." So those were like the two biggest like things in the very beginning that doubled down to where I knew where I was supposed to be. I ended up completing that IOP program in November. By the way, I got clean May 26th of 2020. So by November, I had completed that program. I had brought my youngest son down here. I had gotten a job and I just started working on my shit. And then I got all my court cases and everything. I do a lot of work in the beginning because I had a lot of fucking charges and a lot of felonies. So I had to fly back and forth to Indiana, drive back and forth to Indiana to where I ended up getting all my stuff transferred down here to where I ended up having to do about 3 years of probation. Which I actually got lucky because I honestly should still be on probation today, but clerical error in my favor, they fucked up and I got to get off of it earlier. So I didn't remind them of that. But and I ended up I work as a CNA, I work in healthcare, and it was about 2 years down here. See, I was getting mad in them first couple years because I'm like, okay, I want my other two kids, and we don't work like we wanted to, right? And finally, it was about 2 years I was down here. I got my own place, and my kids finally got to come down here. The other two got to come down here for a visit that summer. And as I was getting ready to get ready to plan on taking them back up north, my dad called me and he's like, "I went to the lawyer's house or lawyer's office today, and um, he's like, I'm gonna need you to go get them kids enrolled in school down there, and it's time for you to have your kids back." So I got to get my kids back that summer. I was kind of in panic mode. Like I didn't want them to know I was afraid because I'm like, fuck, like this is it. Single mom, 3 kids. How the hell am I gonna do all this shit? But like I didn't I don't show fear. So I did. I got them enrolled in school, um, got them their doctors and everything like that. And off the bat, I put them in therapy. I put us all in therapy together so we could transition together because I really don't have nobody down here. I have my cousin, but aside from that, like we needed to have common ground because they were angry. You know, I had a lot of fights with my oldest in the beginning. A handful of them were and he was right for some of the shit he said. He's like, "Mom, why do I have to move just because you can't stay clean up here?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck, you're right, but I love you. Come live with your mom. I'm sorry I fucked up." And my daughter suffered from still has a lot of PTSD and abandonment issues. Like I struggled with her immensely in the beginning because I'm a third shift worker. So she would get in this panic attack when I'd go to work thinking that I wasn't coming home, which I did that to her. Like,
Yeah.
and I missed about half of her life. So um, got a lot of that parenting guilt, that shit. I don't know if that ever really goes away. It gets better as the days and the time goes by, but you still remind yourself of the things that you missed and angry at yourself for. Um, I got my license back. I got my kids back. I got a good job, and um, I just keep going forward. Keep pushing forward. I do a lot of online recovery. About 3 years ago is when about 3 years ago is really when I kind of dived into some of this online recovery. See, I'm not a 12 stepper. I didn't do any, I don't do those programs. I'm not against any of those by any means. I just didn't do them because I didn't want to be a nuisance to my cousin. She was already doing so much for me and I didn't want her to take me to another meeting every single day. So I did a lot of online shit in the beginning. And that's actually when I found Drew Hicks. Because I started Googling shit or looking in Facebook, and um I was one of those silent listeners, and I listened to him a lot in my early, and he had no idea who the fuck I was. And I think I've told him this a few times, like, what really drew me in is because he was from Indiana, and I'm like, this motherfucker can do it, so can I. Same stomping grounds. So I was that silent listener for a long time, and then I started doing online recovery groups, and with a few other people, we started the first group, and um, I seen how things were ran out there. I seen that the internet can be used for such an amazing tool if it's used for good, right?
Yep.
And I am so into the fact of unity and recovery and being able to help each other. So we ended up making Recover Out Loud, that group, Facebook group. And the basis behind it was, I have a team of admins to where we come from every different DOC, alcoholics, fentanyl, pills, heroin, meth, different years of recovery. I think maybe from maybe 2 years to 10, 10 or 11 years in recovery. Just so, and that was the purpose, to meet somebody where they're at all times, right?
Yep.
And be an outlet, be a voice for somebody when they need to reach out. And that's what we do. If somebody needs to reach out, we're there. And then the other thing is we always do Facebook lives. We do one every morning and every night because I didn't go to meetings. And sometimes, and because I was the COVID era, and sometimes it's hard for people to get to meetings too. And sometimes you just need to fucking talk and listen to somebody, right? So that was what we did. We do 2 meetings a day, different topics, and since then it's grown, and and then I've become a part of Drew Hicks's platforms. He has me on his dream team with some other amazing people. That pretty much we kind of combined our groups together in that aspect of team members, and then he started having me do the lives on his page, and yeah, just expanding and going and moving forward, and that's what I do today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you were sharing at the beginning about going through the abuse with your ex-husband, man, like all I could just think about is like, yeah, it would lead to addiction, right? Like,
Was lost.
yeah, yeah, you were lost. You had that moment of where you felt free, but you didn't know who you were, right? And I think every addict or alcoholic has that moment, right? Like for me, mine came a lot further after after I was an alcoholic, but it became more prevalent when I left the army because I didn't know who the fuck I was, right? Like
Right.
I was this dude who put a uniform on, and then I no longer had to put the uniform on. So who am I after that? And
Yeah.
so, that sense of not knowing who you were, I can relate to that, and then just diving deep into it, put when you were sharing about, hey, I put rules for myself, right? Like I'm only gonna do it this day. I mean, like that's addict and alcoholic behavior, man, and one on one.
Yeah, it was. And and that's why I and you've heard me speak, I think, a couple times, and I am a very positive person. That negativity that I was stuck in for so long, like I was that girl of the why me? Why is this always happening to me? Why nobody loves me? I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not all these things. It's just self-pity, self-negative that I realized in my recovery that I had to find a positive. And I'm a very positive person. I can find any negative situation, I can find a positive in it. And I always tell everybody, I don't care what program you run, I don't care what it is, but you have to learn to love yourself, because that was the biggest thing, that I had no value, no worth for myself. Like, fuck, I tried to not be here so many times, Now my life, I can't imagine not being here, but it's because I had to learn to love myself. And that is the one thing that I think we all lose, is that value for ourselves. And it's the hardest thing to figure out how to get back. Because I always get people that ask, how do you love yourself? You just have to start. And for me, I I was down here in a new environment, my cousin told me, she's like, You get to start new. You get to be whoever you want to be today." And I didn't know what that meant. So I started doing shit on my own. Like, nature is a huge thing for me. I'm like in the perfect place in the United States, I feel, for nature, because it's so beautiful here. And those are the things that I started to do. I would, go on hikes. I'd go sit on top of the mountain. I take my kids and go fishing, and like nature, and not having to worry about asking somebody where they want to what they want to do, or if what we're doing is going to piss them off. I didn't have to conform to nobody anymore, and that's how I started to learn to love myself. I got to find me that way and know what I love to do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you were talking about the negativity, and like you were a product of your environment. Not saying that that's right or wrong, but you were a product of your environment, right? So like you were in a super negative. I mean, for all intents and purposes, like you were
Yeah.
stuck in negativity your whole life, right? Like so, you were surrounded by people who were borderline alcoholic, if not full blown. And then you go into high school where you meet this man who automatically introduced you into the adult world from a negative standpoint, and then you lived in that negativity, right? And like you woke up in it, and you just lived in it, and I can completely relate to it. So I mean, naturally, you know you conform to the negativity, and I'm glad that you see it now, that you had to love yourself in order to be able to progress forward, and step away from that. I'm a huge advocate for loving yourself, right? Like
Absolutely.
one of the first things I ask people when they share their recovery story, not on here, but I ask them, like, do you love yourself? And either it's gonna generate a smile or it's gonna break them, because
Yep.
some people have loved to learn themselves and other people have not. And
I
so,
used to
like,
think that I was that person. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, I have a habit of that.
you're
Um,
okay.
I was that person that I thought that if I love somebody enough that I would love me. I was that one that always said, "It makes me happy making other people happy despite what it does to me," until I realized that all that shit that I put out, I wasn't getting, and there was nothing left. I was broken.
Yeah. Yeah, you were emptying your cup for other people that weren't filling it back up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been in relationships and situationships and romantic relationships where that was it. I completely relate to that. I can understand. And I think that the self-love portion extends, you know, much past us waking up in the morning and making our bed. I think that's really big, like making your bed the first thing you do.
It is, and when I finally realized, it wasn't until I actually this time last year, I had been single for about 3 years into my recovery or so, roughly, 2.5 years in my recovery, 3 years, whatever. I stayed single and I got into a relationship, and, um, boy, I know how to pick 'em.
Yeah.
And that one was, it's different when you're dealing with somebody who is abusive when it comes to drugs and alcohol, but when they're abusive, when none of that's involved, boy, that was uncharted territory for me.
Yeah.
And when I realized that I actually found the love for myself, it's because I didn't let it go on any as long. I did get it go on a little longer than I should have, but I realized that I didn't want to live my life like that,
Yeah.
and I deserved better than that. So that it ended, and it was it was about as rough that year as it was for 13 years. I can tell you that. Um, and when I let go and I realized, because one of my biggest fears when I got clean was like, what if I get into a relationship and it doesn't go well and I go get high again?
Yeah.
And I realized that I had so many tools, I had so much more support now, or at that time, and still do today, but, like, that wasn't even the thought, but I knew that all those signs were there that I, like, need to get out of my head and all these things, but I had gained so enough love for myself that I knew what I accepted in life, and that's not what I was gonna accept.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to say I'm very proud of you for not choosing to pick up.
Thank
That's
you.
very huge. I've been in two, well, one earth shattering breakup, and then the other one was kind of just monotonous. And staying sober during those, during the breakup, or clean during the breakup, is, and even afterwards, and just maintaining what you got, man, that's huge, because you no longer are running to what's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
You're sitting in the discomfort, and you're sitting in the questions that you might have had beforehand, and you're able to work through that. So I'm really fucking proud of you.
Thank you. And
Absolutely.
I actually today, I am, I mean, I'm been happy in my recovery, but today I do, I have found somebody in my life, and somebody that I've known for 10 years, and like he's learning this recovery thing now, and not to the same degree as I do or want to do things, but he's learning, and I'm happy. Like, I'm just, it's, my kids are happy. We all get along. Like, life is good. Despite the bad days, man, I'm still smiling. Life is still good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, and I can imagine that the bad days now are better than your best days then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I always tell everybody life gets fucking lifey. That's one of my phrases, because you never know what you're gonna expect in life. You never know what's gonna happen from one minute to the next. Um, and then nobody is above shit happening to them, and it's just how you maintain it. It's just how you deal with it, and we all deal with life in different realms and in different ways, but It's just taking a breath, taking a step back and reevaluating. And the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that has helped me this entire time, because I suffered from depression and anxiety, and I had panic attacks and things like that. And the biggest thing that's helped me is to, when life starts to happen, I go through these little steps in my head, and the very first one is like, can I control this? Do I have any control over what is going on right now? And if 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. You can't control, losing a job. You can't control, if you lose somebody in your life, whatever. Those are things you don't have control over. But like, for instance, if you lost a job, you can't control getting fired, but you do have control over getting your ass out there and putting applications in and working harder to find a job. That's what you can control. So don't stress over anything that you have no control over, because that's just unnecessary energy that you're putting out. And I realized that I did that for so many years that weighed me down.
Absolutely. One final question before I get to my last one. Did you ever go through MRT, moral recognition therapy?
Um,
Because a lot of what you're saying reminds me of that program, and it's just that
I
one
don't
was,
even know what that is.
oh goodness, it's a 12-step program, but it was created by a guy in Tennessee in Memphis, and it's meant to treat like inmates, adolescents, as well as like veterans. They have a different pathways for it, but essentially makes you look at all the things that you've done wrong in your life and then take accountability for them. And then one thing that you really said in there was, um, if it, you know, if you have no control over it, why worry? And that's a question that is asked in there. You list a bunch of things that bother you, and then the facilitator at the end of it says, how much of this do you have control over? And it could be a range of things like, my parents are dying, right? Or like
Yeah.
my, and just you list all your worries, and then the facilitator asks, do you have control over it? You say no, and then they say, why worry about it? And that is the hardest thing, because like, you don't have fucking control over a lot of things in this life. The only thing you have control over is your actions
How
and your
you
words.
react to them.
Yep.
Yep. And then that has been the biggest thing. And just like you said, taking ownership, like and this is stuff that I learned from my cousin, like
Yeah.
owning my shit. That was the first thing she taught me. Own your shit. You
Yeah.
you did what you did. You can't lie about it. You can't hide it. The sooner you own the fact that you fucked up, the sooner you can learn from it.
Yeah.
And that's how I live my life today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I always ask my guests this one final question. I find it the most, in my opinion, the most valuable thing in my recovery. So, what are you grateful for today? What are 3 things you're grateful for today?
One would be that I can smile today. I actually just had that thought. There was a post the other day that somebody said, what is something that you used to pray for and that you have today?" And I always wanted to be happy. And I thought that I was going to be sad and lonely and depressed and all these things my whole life. Like, I thought that was it. But today I enjoy life. Like, I am happy to be here despite the shit days, because there are some shit days. I have teenage kids and they make me want to pull my fucking hair out some days. But I love my little rugrats regardless. And I'm happy and I can smile, and I'm okay with, I'm okay today. I'm grateful for the foundation of family that I have around me today, and it's not blood family. I have a unity of family, especially with this online recovery of people that I've got to meet in real life, people that I talk to that know more about me than a lot of people do, and people that have my back and want to listen on my bad days, even if I sound like a crazy fucking bitch and I make no sense. They want to listen,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful for that today. And I'm also thankful that I get to be a mom again. That was one thing that I told myself, if I ever got that when I was living in them woods, if I ever got the opportunity to be a mom again, I wasn't going to take it for granted. and I don't, I am the mom. Like I said, a single mom prior to now. I was a single mom with 3 kids for all this time up until a few months ago. And going to showing up for every ball game, every cheer practice, every all these things, and being able to watch my son, oldest son, graduate this past May. Like I get to be there, I get to be present, and I get to finally realize what my dad was talking about when we'd sit around the bonfire, and he'd be all grinning and be like, "This is what life's about." And I'm sitting here like, "What the fuck you mean? We're just sitting by a fire, Dad."
Yeah,
No, it's being there with your family and the moments and making the memories. And those are the things that I'm thankful for.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jamie, I want to say that I am grateful for you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for opening up. We need a lot more people like you in the world, and I'm just grateful for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It is extremely, I'm honored to be here. I love what you do. I think you're a great human being, and just keep getting everybody to come do this, because this is what we all need. We need people to share this stuff, and to not. I used to think I was the only person in the world that thought the things that I thought and felt the way that I did. And when I finally realized that, hey, there's more weirdos out there like me, um, it's refreshing to know you're not alone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And everyone, I want to say thank you for being here for this moment. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. I am grateful for every single one of you. Be kind to yourself, be gracious to yourself, and love yourself. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are worth it. Have a nice day.